Imagine you're standing on a flat, endless plain in what is now Kazakhstan. The wind bites your face. The grass goes on forever in every direction. And somewhere out in that pale, cold morning, something is watching you. Not a wolf, not a bear, a horse. You've seen horses your whole life. Your people hunted them. They tasted good. Their bones kept you warm in winter. But today, something shifts in your brain. Not a plan, not even a thought, really. Just a question. What if I didn't eat this one? What if I climbed on it instead? Most people assume the answer to why we ride horses and not cows is obvious. Horses are fast, cows are slow. Simple. But that's not even close to the full story. Because humans lived alongside cows for thousands of years before horses were ever domesticated. We milked them, we ate them, we built civilizations around them, and we still chose the horse. The real reason is buried in biology, in brain chemistry, in spine structure, in the shape of a hoof, and in one of the most pivotal decisions any group of humans ever made. And here's the thing that will actually change how you see yourself after watching this. That decision didn't just give us transportation. It gave us language. It gave us war. It gave us you. Stay until the end, because the last section is the part that genuinely rewires how you think about history and your own mind. Let's start with the body. Yours specifically. Right now, if you wanted to sit on the back of a horse, your weight would be supported by one of the most incredible engineering accidents in the history of biology. The horse spine has 18 thoracic vertebrae, each one locked tight against the next, creating a structure that is, in one specific way, nearly rigid. Not flexible, rigid. That sounds wrong. Shouldn't a good riding animal have a flexible back? Here's what's counterintuitive. The rigidity is exactly why it works. That locked, stable platform lets your weight distribute across the horse's back without collapsing or twisting. A horse with a flexible back would buckle under a rider the same way a hammock buckles under too much weight at one point. The rigidity becomes a bridge. And then there's a second feature, even stranger. Horses have no collarbone. None. In almost every other large animal, the collarbone connects the front legs to the body. In a horse, the entire rib cage is suspended in midair, held up purely by muscle. A muscular sling runs between the shoulder blades and the chest, actively lifting the rib cage and stabilizing it with every stride. That sling is essentially your shock absorber. Every time the horse moves, that muscular system is dynamically flexing, catching, balancing, carrying both the horse's own weight and yours. It is the reason you don't feel like you're riding a cement block. Now think about a cow. A cow's spine is designed to handle one thing, its own body weight while grazing downward. It's built for lowering the head, pulling grass, standing still, digesting. The spine sits differently. The muscles are arranged differently. The moment you put a human on a cow's back, you're fighting the animal's entire architecture. You're asking a plow to become a sports car, and when a cow starts moving, it does something horses almost never do. It stops. Not because something scared it, just because there was a patch of grass, or a curious smell, or nothing at all. Cows are not goal-oriented travelers. A horse, by contrast, is a prey animal with one evolutionary obsession: covering ground fast. Flight is survival. Motion is life. That drive is baked so deep into the horse's brain that when you harness it, you're not fighting the animal. You're partnering with an instinct 50 million years in the making. But here's the part that's even more fascinating. Humans didn't figure any of this out through science. They figured it out by living next to wild horses for thousands of years, and the first people who made the leap were one of history's most overlooked civilizations. Picture this. Somewhere between 5,500 and 6,000 years ago in the rolling grasslands of northern Kazakhstan, there was a group of people called the Botai. They didn't farm. They didn't plant crops. They didn't herd sheep or goats. Almost everything they ate was horse. Not just the meat, the milk. Archaeologist Alan Outram from the University of Exeter spent years excavating Botai sites, and what he found inside their pottery changed everything. In 2009, his team reported in the journal Science that they had found chemical traces of mare's milk inside Botai clay pots. Not cow milk, not goat milk, mare's milk. They were milking horses, and you only milk an animal that you've tamed. Outram's team found something else too. The teeth of Botai horses showed a very specific kind of wear pattern. Parallel grooves, the kind left by a bit, the kind left by a bridle held inside the mouth of a ridden animal. These horses were being controlled. The Botai didn't have wheels, they didn't have chariots, they didn't have a written language. But they had horses, and they were riding them across the steppe to herd more horses. Think about what that means. Before this moment, humans were limited to the speed of their own legs. You could walk roughly 25 miles a day, maybe 30 if you pushed it. A horse covers that distance in an hour. The world instantly became smaller. But what makes the Botai story genuinely strange is what happened next. They had something extraordinary, and then it almost disappeared. Modern genetic analysis, including a landmark 2021 study published in Nature by a team of 162 scientists, revealed something unexpected. The horses of the Botai are not the ancestors of the horses alive today. They are the ancestors of the Przewalski's horse, the last truly wild horse species on Earth. It means the Botai domesticated horses, genuinely domesticated them. And then their horses went wild again. The Botai culture was later absorbed or displaced by other steppe peoples. And when those new groups arrived, they brought a different horse lineage with them. One from the Pontic-Caspian steppes, the region stretching from what is now Ukraine down to the northern Caucasus. A horse that was calmer, faster, more trainable. And that animal is the direct ancestor of every horse alive today. Every thoroughbred racehorse, every war horse that carried a general, every horse you've ever seen, they all trace back to that one breeding population on the western steppe. But here's what's fascinating. Why was this horse different from the cow that humans already had? Because by 5,500 years ago, cattle had been domesticated for thousands of years longer. Dogs were domesticated roughly 15,000 years ago. Cattle, sheep, and pigs followed thousands of years later. The horse was a latecomer. And yet the horse did something no other animal had ever done for humanity. It didn't just change what humans could eat. It changed what humans could become. Imagine you are a warrior on the steppe around 3000 BCE. On foot, you can attack maybe 20 people before you run out of ranger energy. On horseback, you can sweep through an entire settlement in minutes and be miles away before anyone can respond. The chariot arrived shortly after horses were widely ridden, and a University of Copenhagen archaeologist named Rune Iversen described it this way. In a world where the fastest thing was a running human or a paddled canoe, horses and chariots changed everything. Battle changed, territory changed, power changed. Entire civilizations that had been geographically isolated were suddenly exposed to each other. And this is where the story turns from biology into something almost unbelievable. Something that is alive in you right now. Around 3000 BCE, steppe people who rode horses began moving, west into Europe, east into Central Asia, south into the Indian subcontinent. They weren't just carrying weapons. They were carrying a language, a single ancestral language that scholars call Proto-Indo-European. And as those horse-riding steppe people spread across the world, that language spread with them. It eventually became English, and German, and Spanish, and French, and Hindi, and Russian, and Persian, and Greek. Nearly half of all living humans today speak a language that descends from the tongue of people who rode horses across the Pontic-Caspian steppe 5,000 years ago. The words you are hearing right now in this exact sentence came to you on horseback. Professor Volker Hade from the University of Helsinki, who co-led a major 2026 study on early horse domestication published in Science Advances, said it plainly. The role of horses in major historical developments is almost too vast to measure. The world was conquered on horseback, and the cow gave us meat, milk, leather, and labor. It was vital. It was essential, but it couldn't do this. A cow cannot cover 40 miles at speed. A cow cannot be steered precisely into battle. A cow cannot carry a message from one end of a continent to the other and arrive before the week is out. The cow's hooves are cloven, split in two. Each side requires its own shoe. Shoeing a horse requires the horse to stand on 3 legs while the fourth is worked. Shoeing a cow requires a special harness because cows will not balance on three legs at all. It takes longer, it costs more, and the shoe wears faster because that split hoof divides the load differently. Even at the level of the foot, the horse was purpose-built for distance in a way the cow is not, and distance was exactly what humanity needed. So why didn't cows win? Because the question was never really about riding. It was about what happens after you start riding. What becomes possible? What becomes reachable? What becomes yours? The horse didn't just transport bodies, it transported ideas. The DNA study led by paleogeneticist Ludovic Orlando and published in Nature in 2021 tracked horse genomes from 273 ancient horses. It found that within just a few centuries after the key horse lineage spread from the western steppe around 2000 BCE, horse populations exploded across Europe, the Near East, Central Asia, and beyond. Nothing like that had ever happened with a single animal species in recorded prehistory. Not dogs, not cattle, not any creature, just the horse. Here is the quiet, strange truth that sits underneath all of this. Every word you speak today, in whatever language, carries the faint imprint of a human who once climbed onto the back of an animal that could have killed them, and chose not to run. The Botai people didn't have a plan to reshape civilization. They just looked at a horse instead of their dinner plate and saw something else. And that single shift, repeated and refined over centuries by people whose names we will never know, eventually produced a world where you are sitting here right now, hearing these words, in a language those same people invented. The cow was never the wrong choice. It was just the choice that stays still. The horse was the one that moved the world. And everything you are, everything you know, every word you've ever said, arrived on its back.